Hey folks, welcome to mographlas.com. In this lesson we are going to be rendering this scene using Arnold for Cinema 4D. So this is going to be our final render, and this is the scene that we are going to be actually working on. As you can see, it's a very simple scene. I have some background objects, and if you take a look, I have these two houses here in front of my camera and this man that's running around, and hopefully we want to render this out. The first thing you need to do is to make sure you are actually using Arnold as your render engine. So go to your render settings after you've installed Arnold for Cinema 4D obviously, and change your render to Arnold Render. And this is the only thing you need to do for the moment. And as you can see, I have a bit different layout. If you go to your plugin C4D2A, I've just docked these options here. As you can see, you can dock it wherever you want. And I have my IPR window here, and you need to actually click on this IPR window. It's going to be a floating window, and then after that you can basically dock it wherever you want. So the first thing we need to do is to actually light our scene, and I'm going to be using an HDR image and image-based lighting to provide the general lighting for my scene. In order to do that inside Arnold, you need to create an Arnold sky, and let's rename this to our HDRI. At the moment, if I enable my IPR and let it go, you can see we are getting this white illumination and white lighting that has been provided by our sky, as you can see. Now, in order to be able to actually load an HDR image here, we need to change our value type from constant to texture, and now we can basically load our HDR image. And this is the HDR that I'm going to be using. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to provide this image. It's commercial HDRI, so this is the HDRI. Let's go inside here. That's the HDRI that we are using basically for this scene, and this is the render that we are getting. I'm going to select my HDRI, and now you can actually increase or decrease the intensity. Let's go something like 2, maybe 2.5 here. Also down here, as you can see, we have some visibility option. At the moment, cast shadows and primary visibility is checked, but visible in refraction, reflection, glossy, and diffuse is disabled. I'm going to check these options here, and this is the result that we're going to get. The next thing is, I really don't want to use this HDR image as my background. I just want to use it as my illumination and lighting source. So I can turn off its primary visibility, and now we're basically using this HDRI to provide the lighting, but we are, as you can see, not seeing it in our background. Now I want to add the Cinema 4D background object, and go to your Create menu, Arnold Texture Image, open it up, and let's use this sky image as our basic background here. And as you can see, we don't see the material preview because the IPR is running at the moment. And if I basically disable my IPR, as you can see, we are going to be able to see the preview here. Okay, let me go to Arnold plane here. There we go. Let's apply this image to our background and let our IPR go. This is the result that we are having. I just want to offset my background a bit, maybe to something like this. Now that's quite close to what we had in our render. That's great. Now let's create a few materials. We just need two materials, one material for this ground object and another material for the objects and the buildings that we have. So let's go to Create, Arnold, Surface, Standard, open it up. This is going to be our ground. Sorry, it's me. There we go. For the diffuse, I'm going to decrease it to something like 0.4, and let's turn off our IPR. For my specular, I'm going to increase it to something like 0.95, even though the rule here is the weight of your diffuse and your specular shouldn't be more than 1, and at the moment is 1.35, something like this, which is a bit illegal, but this is basically a fantasy render, and I don't think rules matter here that much here, because we don't creating any photorealistic images. We are going to render something that we have in our mind, so I don't think that matters that much. So that's our, for the roughness, I want to control the roughness basically using an image, and as you can see, there is no way I can load an image here, so that's why we have our basically Arnold shader network editor, which is a very powerful tool to develop shaders, and I quite like it actually. The first thing I want to do is to basically use an image node, and this is going to be the image. Let's select the node, and now I can load my image here. This is the roughness map that I'm going to use. Before doing anything, I want to make sure this image is going to be applied the way I want to my ground. So let's apply this image. First of all, connect it to the Arnold Beauty. Just click here and drag. When it becomes green, let the mouse go. There we go. Let me apply it to the ground here, and also to these atom arrays. Let me just go ahead and select all of these tags. Going to my length, we do something like 3%, and if I let my IPR go, as you can see now, this is the way this texture is going to be applied. There we go. That's quite close to what we want. I can open up my network editor. Okay, now that we have it the way we want it to, I'm just going to apply it. So let's hook it up with the specular roughness here, and then connect our standard output to the Arnold Beauty. There we go. Now if you take a look at the render, this is what we're gonna get. Actually, I just want to invert the black and the white values in my image, so that's why I'm going to be using a ramp float node. Okay, even though there are some other ways to actually invert your values, but I quite like this ramp float node because basically because you get this curve and you can easily invert the values or control them the way you want. So the way to hook it up, let me just go ahead, connect the output of my image to the input of my ramp float node, and the output of my ramp float node instead of the image would be connected to the roughness of my specular. And now I want to invert my image, my basically black and white values of my image, so I'm going to make sure this is going to be at 1 and this is going to be at 0, and as you can see how those values are actually getting changed. Great. As you can see, as you change these values, you're basically changing the whole image. You see there? So that's very simple actually. Take a look. Right now the image is quite rough, and as you change these values, you're basically getting different effects. There we go. That would be, I think, enough. Okay, so this is the material for the ground. Let me create a material for the other objects. Standard, and this is going to be objects. This is going to be a very simple material. The weight of my diffuse, something like 0.95. Let's increase our specular weight and decrease the roughness a bit, and let's apply it to the city, house number 1, house number 2, and if I enable my IPR again, this is the result that we're going to get. Okay, so that is not too bad. The next thing is actually I want to add some volumetric effects, and in order to do that, let me first create an Arnold light, which is going to be an area light, and let me get out of the camera here and also stop my IPR. Okay, let's just get out of here. I'm going to increase the size of my light quite significantly. If I select the light and go to the main, you can see the width and the height of this light. I want to be quite bigger than this, so let's go to something like 22,000-ish would be enough. Rotate it 90 degrees and let's move it to maybe right here. Let's see, something like here would work, I guess. Okay, get back to the camera, and that's enough. So in order to create some sort of volumetric effect here inside Arnold, first of all you need to go to your create menu, Arnold, volume, atmosphere, and you have this volume scattering effect, volume scattering shader. Let's open it up, increase the density here, and let's change the color from this pure white to be a bit off-white, maybe something like 80% would work. And then you need to go to your render setting under main tab, environment, and basically drag this shader in your atmosphere section here. And if you go to the camera, let's enable our IPR and see if we can see any volumetric effect. You can see we are not going to be able to see any volumetric effect at the moment. That's because the intensity of our light is so let me go something like 8, increase the exposure. You can start to see some effect here. Okay, maybe 7.5, and also I'm going to change the color of my light to this purple color here. That's quite close to what we have. Okay folks, so that's what we have. I don't think it's that bad. I can maybe increase the samples of this light to something like 4, so we don't have that much noise produced by this light here, and our volume samples at the moment is 2, which is good. Also, I'm going to my background image, and if I open the network editor for this one, let me actually look for the color correction node. This is it, and let's hook it up with the inputs and connect this color correction node instead. And if I go to my color correction node, I can decrease the saturation of this background image, kind of something like this. I think that would work to get the image the way we want. So as you can see, we don't have any motion blur, and I really want to add some motion blur. And another problem, I really want to make sure these rough parts of our ground aren't that rough, and at the moment they are very rough. So let me first of all go to this material here and go to my network and go to my RAM float, and if I enable the IPR here, and if I decrease this value a tad, if I go ahead and decrease it completely, you can see we get this completely reflective surface, which is very smooth. But I'm going to maybe go to something like this and make the smooth parts a bit rougher. So something like this maybe would work, and I think that would give us a better result. Okay, I guess that's better. And let's go to our render setting and enable the motion blur here, and that should be enough. And if I render it right now, we should get some motion blur this time. So as you can see now, we have this motion blur. Maybe it's a tad too much, so I'm going to my render setting and decrease the length to something like 0.3. I think would work here, and that would be quite enough for the moment. Finally, if we go to our render settings, And definitely we need to talk about the sampling and ray depth and the whole Arnold material and shader system in our future tutorials and courses. Definitely we're gonna be covering those concepts, so I'm not gonna be able to talk about what is sampling, what is ray depth here, but generally speaking, I'm going to increase my camera AA, which is the overall sampling controller here, to something like 5. I have these diffuse or basically GI bounces, so I'm going to increase the sampling a bit to get rid of some of the noises at those areas. We have tons of glossy reflection, so let's go to something like 3, even though that wouldn't be quite enough, but for a quick render. And we don't have any refraction, we don't have any subsurface scattering, so I can safely decrease those values. If I go to my ray depth, I have the obvious diffuse, so let me increase it to something like 3. We have tons of glossy reflections, so we need to make sure those rays are gonna bounce a bit more, so I'm going to increase my glossy rays a tad too. I don't have any basically sharp reflections or refractions, so I'm going to decrease these guys. And I think that would kind of be enough. And finally we can make sure you got your HD TV aspect ratio and select your desired resolution, and you can go ahead and actually render the scene. And hopefully after you rendered and did some post-production, you should get something quite like this, even though I have applied a dark purple material to this object here that we don't have it here at the moment. It's a very simple material. If I want to quickly actually create it, surface standard, I think this is the color that I used, and some specularity, some roughness. Also, I think I had the Fresnel turned on for this one. We definitely need to go through these concepts a bit more, but I think I've applied material like this to the this object, this person here. So let's go ahead and apply that, and hopefully this should give us what we want. Now we have increased our render settings, so it's going to take more time to render, but as you can see, this is our result. So hopefully if you render your scene with a setting and the technique that I showed you, you should get something quite similar to this, even though it has some post-production. This image here, as you can see, there's some vignetting going on. I add some curve, and you should get something quite similar to this. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Make sure to check out our website, mographplus.com. We have tons of premium Cinema 4D courses. We got a V-Ray for Cinema 4D course, Maxwell Render for Cinema 4D course, some project based motion graphic courses like Cubicle, this gift project, this box project. We got this realistic interior visualization using V-Ray for Cinema 4D, and these advanced 3D motion graphics in Cinema 4D and Real Flow. Make sure to check them out. And thank you for watching this tutorial. Arnold is really great, I really love it. And hopefully we're going to be making more tutorials, and I really like this scene, and I'm gonna be trying to create something quite similar, render the same scene using Maxwell and V-Ray for Cinema 4D and maybe Cinema 4D's physical render, and hopefully create a tutorial about those two in maybe a few days. So thank you for watching, see you next time.